Hey YouTube, what is going on? I'm Chris.
I'm Carly.
And this is CNC Reptiles. And today we're going to take a look at our rack system. Okay guys, so before we get started, we hope that your holiday weekend has started off great. From Carly and I, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Of course, if you're out there traveling to see friends or family, we hope that you're safe out there. So let's get started. Let's get back to why we're here today. So if you've been following the channel, you've probably seen our rack in a couple different videos, feeding videos and such, but we've never actually done a breakdown of why we chose this particular system. And before we get started, this is not a comparison video or a pros and cons video of a rack system versus a terrarium, which is the two most common ways that people keep ball pythons. This is really more about the specific rack that we chose. And so, actually, before we get started, we're going to start with Carly's fun fact. So, Carly, what's your fun fact today?
Okay, so there are two ways that you can choose to help your reptile heat up. You can have a heating lamp up from above, or heat tape, or heating pad underneath.
That's right. And so when we were kind of looking at how we were going to do this, and really when you look at how ball python specifically, heat tape or a heat mat is preferable. And so a rack system is perfect for that. And we'll take a closer look at that here in just a second. So let's kind of get a quick breakdown of what we got here. So first and foremost, let's talk about the type of rack that this is. So this is a PVC rack system, or a PVC enclosure. It is closed on the sides. You can get some that are actually open on the sides, and it's black. So let's talk a few things about why we chose those. So first and foremost, PVC. Obviously we were new to the hobby. We really didn't know how we wanted to do this, and so we didn't want to invest a ton of money up front. And so a PVC system is actually a great way to get a rack, a quality rack, without the cost of, say, an ARS or a Freedom Breeder rack that's made out of metal or steel and costs quite a bit more than what a PVC system runs. And so that's why we went with PVC. Enclosed, so you can actually get PVC systems that are enclosed or open on the sides. The reason we chose enclosed is because, knowing the room that we were keeping the reptiles in, we don't have an ambient temperature of 80 plus degrees. It's actually more like in the mid 70s. So I thought maybe with enclosed, that would have a better chance of kind of trapping some heat, keeping it in and around the tubs, so that ambient temperature is a little bit closer to high 70s to low 80s. And then finally, we chose black. Now you can get PVC systems primarily in black and in white. We chose black because, number one, we do have the semi-clear tubs, which we'll talk about in just a second. But because it's semi-clear, when the snake is all the way in the back of the enclosure, it's completely dark, so they feel completely safe. That's right, yeah. So
they like it dark and safe. They feel more compact.
That's right, and so ultimately, you don't want to stress your animal out. And ball pythons, especially being fairly sedentary animals and ambush predators, they like to be in small, dark places. And so back in the back of this enclosure here provides that perfectly. Now, let's talk more specifically kind of about the brand and why we chose that. So this is actually a Vivarium Electronics rack. Now, it looks like it's a 4-high rack, but it's actually not. It's actually a 2-high rack. It's their VE2. Right here, you can kind of see right there, basically where the two different size tubs are. This whole section just pops off. There's actually some little cutouts here at the top, and there's little feet on the bottom that actually put together so that you can stack them. Looks nice and neat and clean. So the reason we chose those, they actually do make a 6-high of this same rack, VE6, but we wanted to go with something like this because if you do get animals at separate times, or if you have, like for instance, we have two, if we were to get another ball python, you need to quarantine those animals. So I can easily take the top one off, move the bottom one somewhere else for 30 to 60, 90 days, however long we're going to quarantine, before I introduce those animals back into, introduce those animals into the collection. And so ultimately you want to do that so you want to make sure they don't have mites, you want to make sure they don't have any respiratory infections and things of that nature that could spread to the rest of your collection. So that's why we went with this VE2 as opposed to the VE6. The second reason that we specifically chose Vivarium Electronics is the versatility of this rack. So we already talked about, you know, the 2 versus the 6, and you can stack multiple 2s together. You can stack the 2 on the 6 or vice versa. So you can get a lot of container space or tub space in a small amount of size or a smaller amount of footprint. But also the versatility in the tubs. Okay, so as you can see, we've got 2 different size tubs here. Now the tubs themselves are all 22, just shy of 22.5 inches long. So they're 22.44 inches long. They are 4¼ inches high. Okay, and then really the only variability in these is the width. So for instance, these down here are 14 3/4 inch, 14 3/4 inch wide, okay? This is the biggest tub that we can actually put in this rack itself. However, this tub will easily hold probably adult males and adult females till 15, maybe even 2,000 grams, just depending on the female itself. It will not hold females for their entire life. We'll have to go to a 70 series tub at some point, but that is definitely far down the road. Secondly, you've got these tubs here. So these are, again, the same width or same height and the same length, but these are 7.36, so just shy of 7.5 inches wide, okay? Now these particular tubs could probably hold both of our snakes until they're about 500 grams or so. Both of them are clocking in right at about 250, so we still have quite a bit of time before we would necessarily need to tub either one of them up. And then lastly, there is actually one that is just shy of 5 inches wide. So it is like 4.92 inches wide, something like that. And you can fit 3 of them here. Obviously, those are much more for hatchlings. So in this particular setup right here, we've got 4 different levels. I could house 4 subadults, females or adult males. I could house 8 juveniles up to about 500 gram snakes. Or you could do, 12 hatchlings, all in this same rack. And so the versatility is just fantastic with these racks. We also chose with this, and I'll open this up, they should be, both of these girls ate last night. And so you can see kind of how we have this tub set up. Let's see if that's showing really well there. See how we have it set up. So we've got the Reptichip there at the bottom. You can see the dish is right here in the front. And then we actually do provide the hides in the back. Now with this being a dark tub, a dark enclosure, they can get in the back and they're going to feel perfectly safe. But I like that these semi-clear because it does give a day and night cycle. So when it's light outside, they know that it's light outside and they kind of stay in the back. They stay in their hides. They actually really like to climb in and around these hides, so we want to make sure that they have that for a little bit of enrichment, while they're in there. But like I said, doesn't necessarily need that, because when we put it back in here like that, it is perfectly dark in the back. When it's night, boy, you see them out here in front, so they definitely are not afraid to come out when it's night. Last night when Bubbles was feeding, boy, she was ready to go, man. She was right here in the front, and Cutie usually does that as well. Cutie's actually in shed right now. Very, very deep blue. She did eat last night though, however, so
I feel like she'll never refuse.
Yeah, she definitely likes her food. She likes her rats. And so so that is kind of in a nutshell overall the rack that we chose. Now this rack in particular here in the back, so we, as Carly mentioned, there's 2 ways to heat snakes. You have heat lamps, you have heat tapes or heat pads. This actually has a 3-inch width section of heat tape going through both sections of the rack. I'm sorry. So there's a heat tape for the top one and there's a heat tape for the bottom one. I actually have the Herpstat 2 thermostat, and so I can control both levels ultimately with a single probe. And so that was another kind of reason that we decided to choose this particular type of rack. It's a recessed heat tape, so as you're sliding tubs in and out, you're not sliding over the heat tape and potentially scarring it up and causing further issues like that. It is 5 inches from the back. The heat tape itself is 3 inches, so I like that as well because the snakes can actually get behind the heat and not be exactly on top of the heat and still be in the far back. Some of the racks will have back heat, or the heat tape will start at the very back of where the tub starts. I like the idea of the snakes being able to be back there and they can be 100% on the heat, or they can be back there and not be on the heat at all, or not, at least not be directly over the heat, yet still feel very safe back in the dark. And a couple of the other things that we have, and you can see, and I think you can see this on here, we have some condensation buildup. I'm actually going to do a subsequent video on some things that we've learned now that we've done this for 3 months. Been a few things that we've learned that we want to share with you of how we fixed that. I'm not too much worried about the condensation right now, however. As I said, Cutie is currently in blue. She's about to shed here in the next couple of days.
So that will help her.
And that, well, that shows that there's a lot of extra humidity in there, right? And so that helps them shed, right? You want to actually raise the level of humidity whenever they're about to shed. Bubbles is not necessarily in shed yet, but she has gained, since the last time she shed, she's gained almost 60 grams, and that's about the last time she shed. So I would think maybe here in the next week she might actually start her shed cycle. So I'm not too much worried about the condensation buildup on the front. It's actually not built up around the entire tub. It's just in the front here where the water dish is, and I think a lot of times you might encounter that when you're dealing with a rack system. So overall, guys, that's our rack. That's kind of the reasons that we chose to go this particular way. We hope that you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. What do we need them to do, Carly?
Like, subscribe, and hit the notification.
Hit that notification bell, guys, so you can always know when we have good content. So again, guys, we thank you for coming along this journey with us. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year, and we will see you next time. Bye.